Coming up on the I'm a Car Chick podcast, part 1 with guest Erin Duke.
Without going on a tangent, that's my stall for the automotive industry is get your kids involved when you're working on your car. You know, preteens, teenagers, get them involved. And I know back when I was in high school, they had an automotive technician class, and I never once had any slight interest in it because I'm like, oh, that's a boys thing. Like,
I was so excited on my first day. I had my corduroy skirt on and my corduroy vest and my plaid shirt, and I was all excited. I showed up for work, and the manager, I had said to him, okay, it's my first day. I'm here to work. How do I sell cars? I want to learn. He goes, smile and act stupid.
oh no.
And I was like, what? He goes, smile and act stupid. You'll sell a car by default. Don't worry.
Revving up the auto industry, one conversation at a time. Featuring industry leaders, auto experts, and trailblazers. We are bringing you unfiltered interviews highlighting the voices all around the industry. Let's cut through the noise. Join us. Let's light it up together. Hosted by Shasta Haddock. This is I'm a Car Chick podcast.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to another fun episode of the I'm a Car Chick podcast. You know what? This is my first recording since NADA, and I took the rest of February off after NADA, and it was so nice, but I was definitely ready to get back at it. So it's so nice to be here with you guys again. And I snagged for our very first guest. I snagged, you know, when I say I snagged all the time, I need to come up with more words. So someone send me a thesaurus, please. But I grabbed a very good guest. After NADA, I had a chance to, I found out about this tool and was like, okay, I've got to see this, give me a demo of it. And it's a tool I really like. And I got to meet the person you're about to meet, got to meet her on said demo and was like, okay, we need to talk more. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you guys to Erin Duke. Hi, Erin.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me as your first guest back from NADA.
Yes, thank you for being here. And I'm doing really good. You know, like I said, I took the rest of February off from podcasting. I think I needed it. I needed a little refresh and reset after 30 interviews in 2 days. And, you know, we're back at it, ready to roll. So you are the co-founder and director of dealer success for Auto Lot Impact, which is the tool I was talking about earlier. But you have 24 years of experience in the industry, which is awesome. I love
Thank you.
seeing not only women in the industry, but women who stay in the industry.
Thank you.
And so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how did you even find your way into automotive? The story is different for everybody, and I love hearing it. So how'd you end up here?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. So many years ago, I was a manager for a large restaurant chain, and I had gotten kind of tired of it. It's actually what I went to school for too. And I thought, you know, this is just getting tough. I don't want to do the late nights. I don't want to work really every day of the week. I just don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. Well, lo and behold, of course, the auto industry is just as many hours, just as many days. And so who knew that didn't work so well. But anyhow, I had left my job and I took a little time off. And I thought in the fall, you know, I should probably go find a job. I'm going to run out of money here. So my parents had a friend who was a parts and service director for a dealership. And he and I were talking one day, and he said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know. There doesn't seem to be anything that I think I'd really love to do. And I was about 23 at the time. And so he said, why don't you come down to the dealership and fill out an application? He goes, it's a job I think you'd really enjoy. I think you'd be good at it. And he goes, you know, it could turn into a lifelong career. I was about 23, and I thought, I don't know. And I said to him, I don't know anything about the auto industry, although my grandfather was a dealer. I don't know a thing about cars. I don't know anything about it. He said, you know what? Come down, fill out the application. He goes, just try it for 30 days. He goes, if you don't like it in 30 days, just quit. So I thought, well, I can do that for 30 days. I mean, that sounds reasonable. Well, Here we are 24 years later. But so I went down to the dealership and applied. They hired me. I was a salesperson, and I was so excited on my first day. I showed up. I worked for a Land Rover actually as a salesperson, and I had my corduroy skirt on and my corduroy vest and my plaid shirt, and I was all excited. I showed up for work, and the manager, I had said to him, okay, it's my first day. I'm here to work. How do I sell cars? I want to learn. And he looked at me up and down, and he said to me, what do you mean you want to learn to sell cars? And I said, I want to learn to sell cars. I don't know how to do it. I'm here to work. I'm here to make money. I'm here to sell cars. And he stepped back, and he said to me, I'll tell you what. He goes, smile and act stupid. You'll sell a car by default.
Oh, no.
And I was like, what? He goes, smile and act stupid. You'll sell a car by default. Don't worry. And I was crushed. Crushed. I went and sat down at my little desk and kind of put my head in my hands. And of course, I didn't want to cry because I'm surrounded by, a bunch of car salesmen and men. And I didn't want to be the baby that was crying. So I sat down and kind of took a breath. And one of the seasoned sales guys came over to me, and he actually put his arm around me, and he said, I heard what he said to you. And if you want to learn how to sell a car, he goes, I'll be happy to teach you how to sell a car. So he goes, just follow me. You're going to learn how to sell a car. So fast forward, I went from car sales to being a finance manager. And then one day the parts and service director came to me and said, we need to fill a spot in the service department. Would you like to come over there? And I said, well, I don't know. Once again, I don't know anything about service. And he goes, well, it's no weekends, no late nights.
I'm in.
You're not the last person here at the dealership. And I went, wouldn't that be a nice lifestyle? So I tried it. I actually started as a service advisor, which was a little step back, kind of from being a finance manager, I guess, from manager back down to, just a normal employee. But as we all know, it's really kind of one of the hardest jobs in the dealership to be a service advisor. So it was a little tough, but I then I became a service manager, and then I became a parts service and body shop director. Let's see, I've been a used car manager. I've been a new car manager. I was a finance manager again. Most recently, I've been a GM, and I've done that for quite a few years now. But also the gentleman that taught me car sales many years later, when I was a parts and service director at another dealership, he needed a job. And so he filled out an application, and I said to him, I don't really have a spot for you because of the size of the dealership and that sort of thing, although it was a large dealership. But I owe it to you. You taught me the industry, and I've come all these years because of you. So I owe you a job, and the job is yours. So he then worked for me for several more years until he retired, which was really awesome. So
that is so cool. Yeah. I love it when we find those men that are willing to, stretch their neck out and help and not be like the sales manager was.
Right. It was so cool. It really was. And as I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying it's awesome to see that come full circle like that.
Yeah. And as I always say, in that time, I've had some of the best experiences of my life in the car industry. I've also had some of the worst. It's been a wild ride, and just when you think you've seen it all, along comes something else. But I started in a time in 2002 when I would go. I remember I used to work for a Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge dealership before it was Ram was even their own brand, but I was invited to Las Vegas. They invited 50 of the top service directors in the country to Las Vegas for a big meeting. And I was the only woman in the room. I mean, there wasn't, there wasn't anyone, it was me. And so it's been kind of interesting over the years to see how the industry started to change. Even as recently as the other day, I had gotten a comment on a video that I had done for Automotive Impact. A guy commenting saying, can you imagine a woman GM in the dealership and all the drama that would come because of that? So, I mean, there's still stuff that obviously goes on in our industry, but
did you know that there's a monthly newsletter where you can keep in touch with everything the I'm a Car Chick podcast is up to? There is. Check out the show notes below,
And you can also follow us on all social media and stay in tune with whatever we're up to.
Okay, great, fine. I mean, we'll male or female, if you're determined, you prevail anyway, and it doesn't matter. So, but yeah, it's been a wild ride over the years, and things have changed, but the industry has changed so much, actually.
Yeah.
And
I gotta know, like, with your, so you obviously started sales, went to service, and then worked your way up through management back on the sales side. I've always wondered, when someone becomes a GM, how imperative is it to have that fixed op experience?
I think it's very imperative. It's kind of unusual. Most GMs have never been on the service side, let alone started on the service side. But I think in order to really run the dealership in a really well-rounded way, you really have to have a great understanding of the service department, whether or not you've lived it, ate it, breathed it on a daily basis. It's important to know, and it's important to know two parts. I mean, that's really a great profit center for your dealership.
Yeah.
And obviously the service department. So at least if you don't understand the flow and how the service and parts department work together, because I mean, in all reality, you're really running 4 or so different businesses
within one roof.
Right, exactly. And if you can't make those come together and the people come together, there's a bad problem to be able to take care of the customer. So,
well, and a lot of things that people don't realize is there's sales in service. Correct. Like you're having to sell parts, you're having to upsell service, all of those things, where on the sales side, you don't get a lot of that service experience or a lot of knowledge of the service department. So like service directors actually make really good GMs because they already have a really functional understanding of both sides.
Right. They do. And, it's gotten much harder too, even just the way the vehicles are set up now. Most manufacturers, there's no longer the 3,000-mile oil change. There's no longer the, maintenance at this interval or that interval. Even with electric cars and such, it's gotten a lot harder. So, for a service advisor to be able to sell, to upsell on some of those maintenance things, those items, fluid changes, and that sort of thing is huge. And it's vital to the service department. I mean, you obviously have to have that money coming in.
Yeah. Well, and it also benefits the sales department, because if you're taking good care of these vehicles, then when people are ready to trade them in again, you've got a well-maintained vehicle you have the full history of, and it was taken care of properly, to know that for the next customer, you're not going to be having to deal with a whole bunch of maintenance issues that you have to then comp them because you sold them a freaking lemon.
Correct. Exactly. And, it's funny, when I was a salesperson at that first dealership that I was talking about, I had the end desk between the sales department and the service department. And every morning I would run over and talk to the service customers about their vehicle. Good morning, my name's Erin. Is there anything I can get you? Do you have any friends or family looking for a vehicle? And I would inevitably sell 2 to 3 vehicles, maybe 4 a month from the service department. So people that weren't even, I think, had zero intention of trading their vehicle that day.
Yeah. People don't realize how much the service department can be marketed. And there's some dealerships who are doing a phenomenal job of it. There's tools out there that will do like the appraisal before the customer even comes in, and have everything set up so it's easy breezy for sales and they don't have to do like a cold pitch. But then there's other dealerships out there who just completely ignore their service department and act like they're just 2 separate entities of the same business.
Yes. I even, I was in a meeting not that long ago, and there was a dealer that we were talking about courtesy inspections. And some dealers were saying, well, we charge for those. We don't just automatically do a courtesy inspection during an oil change. And there were other dealers in the room that said, well, what are you talking about? We don't even do them. I'm like, what? Why wouldn't you? That's such a great, I mean, for, to cover the dealership, heaven forbid you miss something. There's a cut brake line or God knows what, but A, from that aspect, but B, to be able to take care of the customer and let them know what's needed on their vehicle. I was shocked.
Yeah. Well, and it's always amazing to me to hear different stories of how things operate, not only like in different places of the country, but rural versus suburban areas. I mean, big cities versus, small towns. And it seems like we see that happening a lot in those smaller towns because number one, they don't have the competition that they've got to, they feel that urge and that need to stay on top of things and ahead of the game. But even more so, they're not as targeted maybe like by some of the vendors or anything like that to offer these products to them or to talk with them, or even their reps, because they're not the highest volume and so they're not top of the list. But I mean, so many of these dealers, like we're decades apart difference wise in some dealerships. You know, some dealerships are operating in the 2030s already, while we've got other stores that are still back in 1985.
And or 1900, no.
Yeah, it's insane. It's like, it's absolutely wild just to know that, you know, we say that we're making huge strides as an industry, and there's still, I know of a dealership not that far from me, and it's not even in a small town, where they still go to work. All the salespeople still go to work every day in a 3-piece suit, with their big gold watches, their nice shiny shoes. Like I'm talking the blazer, the tie, everything. And it's a Stellantis store. It's not a Land Rover store. It's not a Jaguar store or a Mercedes store. It's a Stellantis store, and it's like, what? What? It just boggles my mind, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like I would expect that at a higher end store. I wouldn't expect that at a Stellantis store. So, and it's just, I don't know. It's just shocking to me. But it's you, like you said, it's different across everything, and you know, and that's why 20 groups exist.
Right, exactly. And, you know, that's been the conversation for a long time, actually, that I've heard so many times over the years, is to try to standardize the industry in some form, shape, fashion. And it just doesn't seem to exist. And it doesn't seem like it may ever, at least in our lifetimes.
Yeah. No,
it doesn't.
No, because I mean, even if you start with the franchises, the OEMs, and try to implement something at that level, then they're going to be like, I'm not going to do the same thing that they're doing. And then them trying to implement it down into all of their dealers. And then you've got the independents. Right. And how do you even get to all the independents? I mean, start with NIADA and all of their dealers. And then what? Like, it's there's no way. Like, we're so far away from being able to implement one thing across the board unless it becomes law. And then getting all the states to cover said, I mean, ugh.
Right. And you're so right. I mean, as you talk to independents and you talk to franchise dealers, and just, you know, in what we're doing now, it's wild. I mean, there's just so many different things that people are doing. There's so many different things that people are trying. It's good, but it makes it hard for the industry to really work cohesively at one. And, you know, I think, unfortunately, that's oftentimes the impression with a customer of, oh, you know, a used car dealer, or you know, that franchise dealer took advantage of me, or this or that, because unfortunately there just seems to really not be a great standard of conduct. I guess you call it.
No, it's, I mean, it's true. It's like, I sometimes feel like I can't even do dealership business in Joplin because I've got such feelings about all of the dealerships here. And like, I'd have to, I mean, luckily I have connections all over the country that if I needed a specific vehicle, like I've got plenty of connections to find and get it from, but the average consumer doesn't have that. I mean, if somebody has, you know, a bad taste in their mouth or a bad experience with every dealership in town, what are they supposed to do? Like, go do all their vehicle sales and service out of town?
Right. You know, it's funny. It's funny you should say that. We recently spoke to a dealer group that we had done a demo for, and it's a larger dealer group, but there's a town where and it's funny because it's not that large of a town. I didn't look it up, but I suppose it would be probably maybe 30,000 people. And there's 5 different franchise in that town. They all used to be different, owned by different dealers or different dealer groups. Well, the same dealer group owns all the brands. And it was just funny. I didn't realize that they had acquired all the brands. So I took a look at it and I thought to myself, boy, if they do the wrong thing and they get any type of reputation, it's every single dealership of theirs. And they're all under the same name. So it's not as if you wouldn't realize that one was owned by the same company and not the other. But I just thought, oh boy, they better always do the right thing.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by SCP Agency, your one-stop shop for organic social media. Check them out by clicking the link in the show notes or visit scpagency.com.
You have no room for error in a situation like that.
Right. It was kind of weird. And you don't typically see that, where in a small town, every single dealership is the same dealer group. But
yeah. I had a question earlier, and I held on to it for a minute because that was good conversation. When you were in the dealership in your different positions, how frequently, and this is gonna be super off the wall, how frequently were you working with other women in the store, like as other staff members?
It's gotten more frequent in the last few years. For many years, there was never a woman technician. Actually, at our store, we have two. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're younger gals. They're still in school, but they do a great job. Prior to that, I've only seen, I think two others in the time of franchise dealerships and high line, normal line, I guess you would call it, over the years. But typically, the office staff and the office managers obviously are typically women. I've had quite a few service advisors over the years that have been women. More salespeople that have been women, or than more recently than in past years, of course. But the thing that I think is kind of frustrating to me, and this is just my own opinion, but people come into the industry, and I think it takes a certain type of woman, I guess I would say, to be able to, I hate to say it, but survive the industry or just have the grit to continue to hang on to it. And I've seen gals come in that, initially I've thought, okay, I think they're a good hire, but I think they're a great hire actually, but I don't think it's actually going to work out, because I just don't think they unfortunately have the fortitude to sometimes withstand how things go on.
Yeah.
But I guess for me, it's hard because, as I said, I've seen some of the most wonderful things in my life have happened in the auto industry, and some of the worst. And, you get people, and I'm sure it's the same for men. You get people that come into the industry thinking, oh, I can do this, or I can do that. And they kind of, I don't know how to put it, I guess, kind of burn up what's going on in the dealership. And I think to myself sometimes, boy, there's people that have been in a long time like myself that I'm not tooting my own horn or anything, or really calling it this, but have kind of paved the way for other women to enter the industry many years down the road. And some of them come in and just, I want to say that I guess they don't understand it, or they don't maybe respect how the industry's gone over the last 20 plus years. Yeah. And how hard it's been. And for them to be able to walk in the door and acquire a job and sit down and start, it's people and women that have been in the industry that have paved that way. Yeah. And a lot of people that I think don't really have the understanding of that. So they kind of treat it as just if this job doesn't work out, I'll just go down the street and find another job doing something else. Yeah. Where, for many of us, it's been a long-term career, and it's been our livelihood. Well, whether we intended it to be or not.
Yeah. Well, and I think about, like, I have a very, very analytical brain. And so, I'm the person that I hear someone with a problem and I'm like, I immediately go into solve mode. And so I think about, just like your story in specific, where you came in and you're like, I want to learn how to sell cars. And there was obviously, the thing that you didn't say that I picked up is there was no onboarding or training process.
No.
And so we're left to wonder, okay, well, why could a man succeed in that position doing that? Right. And I think about the natural level of confidence that most men have, because of the fact that if we think back their whole life, more than likely at some point their dad, their grandpa, somebody in their life worked on a car with them, right, or had them hold the flashlight while they were working on a car. They had more exposure to the mechanics of a vehicle or vehicles in general. Right. They played with cars as kids They, they had the Hot Wheels, they had the monster trucks. I mean, I think about my nephew right now, he's obsessed with monster trucks. And so it's things like that where they have more exposure to cars, more confidence in their knowledge of cars, where young girls and young women don't get that.
Right.
They don't get that exposure. We don't take our daughters to teach them how to change the oil in a car. We don't show them how to replace their wiper fluid or change their light bulbs. Like, I mean, I was 31 years old, my current age, when I learned how to change the headlight on my car. And I taught myself. Like, I went to O'Reilly. I asked my husband if he would help, and he's like, just go to O'Reilly. They'll do it for you. And I'm like, I've been in the industry for nearly 12 years. I am not having someone at O'Reilly change my freaking headlight and look like I'm a woman in distress. I'm not doing that. I go in, I buy the headlight, and they're like, do you want us to come do it for you? And I was like, no, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I go out there, like he had to look and see what the headlight was. So he'd already opened the hood and showed me on accident. Like, he wasn't trying to show me, but he had opened the spot where to get to it. And I'm like, I got this. I saw how it operates. I've got this. So I couldn't get it in the first place. And I'm just sitting there jamming it, twisting it, trying to figure it all out. Ended up finally getting it. But it's one of those things where it took me until 31 years old to learn how to change a headlight. And could I have sought that information out earlier in advance? Absolutely. But why is this not things that we're either teaching in high school, teaching in middle school, high school? Like, we're expecting these kids to drive at 16 years old, and they're driving something they know nothing about.
Yeah.
Men and women, girls and boys. And so, I think back to how we can impact the future. And I think it starts with us and our kids going to schools, bringing our kids with us when we go to get an oil change and explaining the process to them. Okay, this is what they're going to do. They're going to drain the oil out. They're going to put a new filter in. They're going to pop some new oil in there. It's a very fast process, all of that. This is the service advisor. Their job is to make sure that we're taken care of while our vehicle is in there. Like, and explaining all of that to them, showing them, this is how you check your fluids. This is how you check your oil. This is how you check your tire pressure. All of these things that if we teach them earlier on, they'll have that higher level of confidence that they don't even realize they have, and will be better suited for this. And when they start working at a dealership or something like that, I mean, my son's 15. He's obsessed with cars. Like, he names cars that I didn't know existed. And I'm like, I've been doing this for 12 years. And we had a conversation, and I'm like, why would you not work in the automotive industry? And he's like, ew, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, but why? Like, you're obsessed with cars. Like,
it's your passion.
Yeah, it makes sense. And he's like, it's gross and they don't make money. And I'm like, that's where you're wrong.
Right.
There's a lot of money. I said, especially if you go to be a technician, like if you work your way up really quickly, then that's money quick. That is quick money, and it's high demand. You can go anywhere and make just about anything you want. And so finally, like, opened his eyes to that. He thought it was this nasty job that didn't pay crap. And I'm like, no, nasty maybe, but it pays.
Oh yeah, it does. Absolutely. Yeah, it sure does. It's funny you should say that about being comfortable in learning those skills. This is kind of funny. It's kind of related, but it's kind of not. So I was 18 years old, and I had seen a vehicle that I wanted at a dealership. It was a used vehicle. And I had acquired my very first car when I was 16 because my father owned a company, and he had signed for an employee that couldn't purchase a vehicle. And he ended up several years later firing that employee. So I ended up with that vehicle as my first car. So when I was 18, I decided I was going off to college, and I wanted to buy my own car. So I went down to the dealership, and it was a 1987 Volvo. And yes, it was golden color. It was beautiful.
Why was it gold in my head already?
That's funny. It was gold. Yes, it was gold.
That's funny.
And so that night at dinner, I said to my parents, okay, I found a car that I want. And Dad, will you go down tomorrow with me to the dealership to buy this car?
You've made it this far, and I have to say thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to rate the show, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and of course on all social media channels. Light it up.
And my grandmother I think the car, to my recollection, was like $7,000. And my grandmother had given me $1,500 as a down payment. And so my dad replied, Nope. If you want to go buy a car, buying a vehicle is an important life skill. If you're going to do that, you're going to go down to the dealership and you're going to buy the vehicle yourself.
Good for him.
I kind of think he thought I wouldn't do it. I really kind of think that's why he said that. But so the next day I marched myself down to the dealership with my little down payment and got my own loan. And my payment was $190 a month.
God.
And, had the car through college and paid it off. And actually it was my first one. So I had it up until a few years ago and sold it to another college kid that then loved it and took it. And matter of fact, a year or so ago, I actually saw him go down the road in it still. But so I don't know. I think maybe fast forward to many years later when my parents' friend was the parts and service director, I kind of think in a slight way, I thought to myself, well, I bought my own car and I kind of knew how that went and how it went on. And it was a great experience. I mean, they treated me wonderful. It was a little independent lot. And I guess maybe that's what gave me the confidence at that point to think, I could probably do that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and think about how that applies to so many things. I mean, obviously we're immersed in the automotive industry. And so we think about the automotive stuff, but I mean, think about owning a home. Like I've literally, so we've owned our home for 4 years now, which sounds like a long time, but there's still things we're experiencing the first of.
Oh, like, yeah.
We just had to replace our roof for the first time, which we shouldn't have had to, but we had a horrible hailstorm and, learning how to do all of that and deal with the roofing company and the things to ask for, the questions that you need to know, or how to maintain your water tank. Like, and that was a thing.
You don't know. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's funny. We always talk about our parents made everything look so easy, or just things that went on that we didn't know or didn't do, that you think back and it's like, gosh, how did they made it look so easy.
Yeah. And it's just the fact that we weren't involved in the process. They were just handling it and doing the thing. And now, like, thinking back, I'm like, why don't I? I mean, I have 2 teenagers. Why don't I involve them in some of this? Letting them know, sit at the table and watch us as we talk about the roofing stuff, or sit with us as we talk about buying new windows and why we need new windows. Like all of these things that
so important.
The frustration I had when I learned you're supposed to drain and clean your water tank like once every, I think it's 6 or 12 months. And I'm like, why did nobody tell me this? Like, there's no how-to for dummies of home ownership that I've seen. And not even that. Like, I posted something last week on Facebook about like when why are realtors not offering up like a book of recommended vendors for these things, like a recommended plumber, a recommended electrician. I'm not talking about the people who are paying you to be on this list. I want you to find the ones that have the best reviews, that have the best customer service, all of these things, and provide this to your first-time homeowners, or any homeowner. Like, doesn't even need to be a first-timer, but finding someone in that area who excels in this thing. And when I posted on Facebook, someone said, I'm selling my house right now, and I provided this to the person that I'm selling the house to, of the people we currently use who already know the home. And I'm like, that's genius.
Yes.
But it's just, one of those things that I feel like as generations, we're getting dumber, and we're getting dumber because I think our parents assume we'll just figure this shit out.
Right.
And we don't. And it's like, okay, now we have to take the time to make sure to teach these younger generations so that they know. And I think it's why we're seeing less automotive technicians and a bigger need for that, because we're not ingraining that in them as they're younger. There's less dads in the driveway working on cars. They're taking them to the dealership to get worked on. And so there's less of that happening. And so
it's true.
Without going on a tangent, that's my solve for the automotive industry is get your kids involved when you're working on your car. And
yes. Tell them about your home. Take them to the dealership.
Yes, exactly. I mean, why not? Like, especially, obviously not the 2 and 3-year-old, because they have no recollection, but preteens, teenagers, get them involved. And I know back when I was in high school, they had an automotive technician class, and I never once had any slight interest in it, because I'm like, oh, that's a boys thing. Like, there was nursing, there was automotive tech, which I didn't do the nursing either. Barely went to school as it was. I didn't like school, but I had no interest in the automotive technician stuff for just that reason of I felt like it was the boys' thing to do, and how just changing that narrative. And there's so many great organizations I've heard of that go into schools and teach them, boys and girls alike, about the automotive industry, what it's like working here, how much money you can make, all the different job types like accounting, finance, sales, everything, where people just assume it's buying and servicing cars.
Right. Exactly. And you're right. I mean, it is a desirable industry. People just don't realize it. And it's an industry where whether or not you have a college education or you don't, I always say anyone that's good in the industry, no matter what their position is, if they work hard and they do a great job, if it's a technician, if it's a manager, if it's a salesperson, if it's a service advisor, there's no less than $100,000 to be made every year, no matter what the position is. Now, okay, maybe not in a rural dealership. If you're a service advisor, maybe you have to go to the city or, that sort of thing. But the money is out there. It's wild. And I remember over the years, especially as a service advisor, when I was a finance manager, I had a customer say to me one day, and he made it was right around six figures. And I was handling his paperwork, and, we were going through his credit application and that sort of thing. And I remember him looking across the desk and saying to me, "Oh, I bet you wish you made the money that I make every year." He's like, "You auto people don't make any money." He's like, I don't really know why they even let you handle people's finances." And I'm looking at his credit application thinking to myself, "Don't worry, buddy, I make more than you do a year."
Oh, I wish you would have said it. Oh my God.
It was just so funny. But I mean, that's the impression. And I guess unless that starts to change, there's not a lot of people that are obviously, like you're saying, driving towards the industry. A few years ago, and I don't know what the statistics are now because our dealership doesn't have a body shop, but years ago, meaning, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years ago, the body shop industry, there were no students. And I know in recent years it's kind of flipped. There's more body shop students now than there have been technician students for a lot of the vocational schools and a lot of the high school programs and such. But yeah, we're running out of technicians. And my theory is this, and it could be a totally wrong theory, but people my age, I'm 48 years old. We were around for 07, 08 in the auto industry when they closed all the dealerships and cash for clunkers and all that jazz. But at that time, obviously there were a lot of dealerships that closed up. Franchise didn't necessarily affect the independents, but the franchise dealerships, and consolidated so many dealerships into, down to their bigger groups, lost some. I mean, some dealerships just completely ceased to exist.
Some franchises closed.
Oh yeah. I worked, this is kind of funny. I worked for, it was just Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge. That was before it was Ram at that point. Mm-hmm. And I had worked for the dealership as a service advisor, and we had moved locations where we lived. So I went to work for another dealership that was closer. Well, that dealership actually called me, the first dealership, and said, "Would you come back as a manager?" And I thought, okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'll come back. So I start back, and my GM says to me, "This is so great that you're back. Tomorrow we'll receive our letter." And I said, "What letter?" And he goes, "Well, the letter from the manufacturer to tell us whether or not we're going to stay in business." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Stay tuned for part 2 with Erin Duke.
But what I didn't know is that they were taking those vehicles and putting something in the gas tanks to make them completely unusable, where they weren't even usable for parts. Like, they had to be completely destroyed. And I'm like, all of the horrible outcomes of that.
Yeah, all the ramifications. It was sad because any vehicle that was traded in under the Cash for Clunker program, we had to destroy. They've all done it. I mean, we've all been in a situation where there's a blind spot, and even us driving, we don't see, we don't realize, we don't, so even for, us, it saves lives, or a younger driver, any age, because anybody can make a mistake on the road.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, I had a hardtop Jeep Wrangler, and the hardtop Jeeps had those black plastic pieces that were the roof connected, and you couldn't see anything, and I backed straight into a tree.